Let's work through that logic right now with the former Deputy Prime Minister, member for New England, none other than Barnaby Joyce, the leader of One Nation and the legend of the Senate that is Pauline Hanson, and the free thinker, the outsider, and the national political editor of the Daily Telegraph, James Morrow. One and all, hello. So help me out here with the logic, Barnaby, which is dope okay, but smoking tobacco will kill you.
Well, all we need is a bit more THC out there so we can sandpaper down to the latent psychosis that many people have. We all have one. It's just whether, for some people it's near the top, some people it's deep down. But if you want some psychological sandpaper, then marijuana and THC, it'll do the trick. And therefore you can then go back to the families who have to deal with the suicides and the schizophrenia and the other mental health issues and explain to them how apparently having a bunga is bad, and it is bad for you. But pulling a few cones, having a party bong with your mates, going out and basically going and delving for your psychosis. I mean, because we all know that people who pull cones every day are just, they're the life of the party, aren't they? I mean, when you meet them, you think, isn't this person just a complete bundle of tricks, you know?
Well, I just love, we've got rock solid constitutional advice from, a bucket bong, a bloke with a bum bag. I love the idea anyway. Can we talk about the cost of living stuff that we just mentioned at the start here, Pauline? Because obviously you, like everyone else, totally focused on it, right? To see a huge number of Australians that are going to bed early, and it's still cold in massive parts of the country right now. Spring, hurry up, please. They're going to bed early because they can't afford to have the heater on. You know the people that are even turning around saying they're not buying the medication that they should be having because cost of living's out of control. But the big priority today was keep the teals happy and let's have a Royal Commission into question time.
Paul, you were exactly right. And what's come out with the cost of living, especially rent that's rising, people can't buy fresh fruit, fruit for their cost of petrol's going up again. It's this week actually, so I'd say to people, go and fill up your tanks before Wednesday night. The cost of living is out of control and they don't really have answers for it. We've come back to this Parliament, new government, and all we've heard about is the voice to Parliament and get rid of the cashless debit card, which is going to have a huge impact on the Aboriginal communities because of all the violence and drug abuse that happens there, and yet they're going to take away the cashless debit card that controls their spending, ensures that kids are getting fed, they're going to school. It's improved, with violence that's happening in that area. So cost of living, I don't know what they're actually going to do about it. I don't think the government has any plan. Remember before the election, Albanese had a plan for everything. We've got a plan for this, we've got a plan for that. I haven't heard anything about plans whatsoever. I think they're flying by the tips of their fingernails. They don't have a bloody clue what they're doing. And I can tell you, everyone here in Parliament is actually bored shitless with this place because nothing's happening. Even the media, nothing's happening. There's no true legislation. The ministers don't even know what the hell they're doing. We don't even know what legislation's coming up. They just have no bloody idea.
I'm loving this, James. It's party night here on Paul Murray Live. It's a Fire Up Monday. We're talking about bucket bongs and, BS, which I completely agree with here, which I've got to say I'm loving. Just some great, straight, honest chat about all of it. But again, can we whack it up back up on the screen? 98% can't afford their rent. 71% cutting back on food. 70% on petrol. The government is in a position to be able to save people that money, but they're choosing not to because they're being pig-headed. 70% cutting back on heating. 62% medication. 62% skipping meals. People taking shorter showers. It's 21st century Australia, James.
Well, it is, but the thing that I'm concerned about is that we look at what's happening overseas. I'm always all about follow what happens overseas, and you're going to see what is coming here. Look at Europe. Look at Great Britain, where all of this is happening. Look at California. And the last time I checked, Russia wasn't invading Nevada right next door and screwing with their energy supplies. And the exact same thing is happening in all of these places. Now, my concern now is, of course, that we're going down the same path with energy as Europe, as Great Britain, as California is. Now, Belgium, just the other day, cut off its nuclear reactor that was providing 10% of its power. Why? Well, to appease the Greens. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I am really concerned that, the government right now is coasting along on kind of a new government high, and everybody's just sort of, letting them off with a bit of a pass at the moment. But I tell you what, you get a round or two of power bills, gas bills, in everybody's back pocket. It's going to be a much different show for this government. And they're not going to be able to blame, any of this on the last occupants, because they're the ones who pushed through the net zero that's going to drive so much of this.
Well, and Barnaby, as we talked about, I want every single person watching us right now, go and find their power bill from May, stick it on your fridge, consult it again in 3 years, and that'll help make your mind up about which way to go.
Well, and remember they said that for so long they've been saying that renewables are free and it's cheaper. Well, the point is, the more renewables we get, the dearer the power bill gets. And that is because renewables are intermittent. They sell power in 5-minute blocks. So they're correct. For 5 minutes, you get the wind's blowing, power's virtually free. It's just the other 23 hours and 55 minutes that we've got to fill the space for. And what happens in this ridiculous premise of selling power in 5-minute blocks is people can come into the market and say, well, when I'm getting it for free, I can sell it to you for very little above free and make money. But it puts all the other people out of business. Now, we used to have the cheapest power in the world, and now we've completely botched that. And if we go down the path which Labor Party wants to go, it is going to get worse because they're not building pump hydros. We've got one over there, Snowy Hydro 2.0, that's just eating its head off. I think it's blown out to about $10 billion.
Wow.
I can't think of another one. Batteries will literally run the place for seconds. I think the biggest battery will do Tomago smelter for 8 minutes or something ridiculous. Then all the people are out of work. So this is a ridiculous position. Now I hear people say, "Oh well, the National Party signed up." We didn't sign up to any agreement with the Labor Party. The Labor Party have no agreement with us, and so we have every right, and I have every intention to make sure in my role within the party that we clearly spell out to the Australian people that if you go down this ridiculous path of surrounding regional towns with hundreds and hundreds of wind towers and transmission lines across farmlands and solar panels on prime agricultural land, when you don't want any of them at Warringah and you don't want any of them at Bellevue Hill or you don't want them off Toorak and you don't want them off Cottesloe Beach, then you're kind of having your cake and eating it, and it's complete hypocrisy. In the end, small modular reactors are going to come in. Rolls-Royce is developing one, 470 megawatts, 16 metres high, 4 metres wide. That means one of them would run 1.5 Canberras. How long do you think those wind towers are going to last in the marketplace when those things come in? And who is responsible for pulling all this redundant technology, which will be wind towers, down?
Yep, bloody oath. 100%.
Well, I'm sorry, I've got to cut in here now because, the Liberal Party and Coalition, sorry Barnaby, but you were part and parcel of all this as well, and you set policies in place. The subsidies you paid out as billions of dollars, you headed down the path of this. There's no difference between you and the Labor Party. There should be a pointed difference between both of you of this climate change BS that we've been fed in this country. And I'd like to see a change. You talk about transmission lines. You put in billions of dollars to pay for these transmission lines that went absolutely bloody nowhere with an uplift factor, and these people are investing money's into these companies and they're getting tax dollars back on it.
There's a massive difference.
You've both made a bloody mistake with the whole damn lot. But until Peter Dutton gets some bloody backbone about him and the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party and start pushing back with this, we are in hell of a bloody mess that's going to come in this country.
There's a big difference. First of all, and it's on the record because other people leaked from a party room, I never supported 2050. I tried to negotiate it to its death.
Okay, I agree with that.
But the next thing is that they wanted a 2030 target. We never supported that because we've got one now. It's lunacy. I support nuclear power and I support the continual running of coal-fired power stations. I want to make sure that we clearly understand that if it wasn't for the export of thermal coal, which is now at record prices, and in some cases higher than metallurgical coal, then the so-called budget surplus, the budget fine, the $50 billion, a lot of that wouldn't be there. It's self-evident. Have a look at your power bill. We are completely botching this. And I said to another colleague today, and they said, "Oh, we'll change your position." I said, "Look, I'm going to quote you John Maynard Keynes. When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir?"
Bloody oath. All right, let's talk quickly about The Voice because everyone knows by now. Polling came out and it shows rather strong support, but a huge amount of people who have no idea what it's about. So the Vibe is winning right now, and according to the polls, the Vibe is winning 64 to 36. State by state, it's 65% in New South Wales, 64% in Victoria, 59% in Queensland, 71% South Australia, 60% in WA and 73% in Tasmania. But here's the interesting bit that you didn't hear in many of the analysis of this today. Just 27% of people say it will actually provide a practical outcome for anyone. 15% say it's symbolic, 17% say it's not enough of either, 15% say it's not about proper recognition, and 26% of people don't know. So the best headline they can put on it today in the Sydney Morning Herald, James Morrow, voters back the voice, but there's doubt over what they're backing. So who should be feeling like they're in the box seat tonight?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly right, Paul. And I think, you nailed it when you said that this was really about the vibe. And right now it's the vibe, is winning the day. But you haven't had a campaign about it. You will have this huge, effort of corporate money to try and bludgeon and bully everybody into feeling like they're a bad person, if they don't support this thing, and that they're somehow an unreconstructed racist if they don't want to change the Constitution and bolt this thing onto our governance structures. Well, I don't think that's going to fly. I think that, some other things that I've seen indicate to me that really once people start to dial in on what this is and what this is all about, they run a million miles from it, and they are going to have a very hard time, I suspect, getting this thing up.
But also, I mean, Pauline, part of the design of this and part of the drip feed of this is that it feels a little bit like the same-sex marriage debate, which is a lot of people's time and attention about politics gets moved to something like this, which means Parliament every day, an opportunity to talk about cost of living, we don't talk about it. Talking about energy production, keeping a system that's not going to have gaps in it, that goes by the by. All the million issues that we talk about, like housing crises and the rest. This is a deliberate tactic to keep it about the vibe for as long as possible, because if it is about the vibe, that's why I got in trouble for saying this. That's why I said 70-30. If it's about the vibe, but do you believe that it's ever going to become about the detail?
Paul, they're playing on people's emotions, and they feel, they've made people feel guilty about we've taken this country away from the Aboriginals and therefore we must actually hand it back to them, put it in the Constitution, enshrine in the Constitution and make them feel a part of it. I tell you what, most of the people out there are so dumbed down, they have no understanding of politics, no understanding of the implications, the ramifications this is going to have on future generations of this nation. Is it about device? It's going to be divisive, it's going to split us. It will define us as black and white in this nation instead of pulling us together. I just wish people would really, truly understand what this will mean. There's no true definition to it. We don't know the whole makeup of it. We don't know the implications. Why would you put something like this into the Constitution? If you enshrine it in the Constitution, you'll never get rid of it. Therefore, you're actually handing control. Then, if you challenge it, it has to go before the High Court. If you go before the High Court, and a lot of these judges, they're so lefty, it doesn't matter what's in the Constitution. It is going to be their interpretation of it. So it can bring dire results for the Australian people. So I'd say to people, think very strongly about this. What is it in for you? Why can't we now deal with the members of Parliament that we have now to actually represent all Australians, regardless of your cultural background, regardless of whether you're black or white? We are all Australians together. Until you realise that, don't trust these politicians. I'm telling you, don't trust these activists, what they want to put before us, because I tell you what, you will pay the price further down the track with the future generations.
God love you guys. Great segment. Thank you very much. I love the fire and I look forward to talking to you all very soon.